Hey, welcome to Role Play Cafe. It's Dale here. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about some of the things we touched on in the last couple of videos, Jason and I, and some of the comments that were on those videos. In particular, trying to differentiate and distinguish between the two, to me, the two ends of the spectrum of role play, which is more of a traditional sense, where are roles that a player will roll in the sense of there's a role for you, a job that you have to do. If you're a cleric, if you're a thief, if you're a fighter, if you're a magic user, whenever your time to shine in the spotlight comes up and you have a job to do, you do this. There isn't really much time to think about existential crisis you're going through or this shift in your worldview or things that happens to you, and, no wrestling demons, so to speak, right? The game really isn't built in that way. Even though you can pepper it or things can happen that may shock, a character in game, and it can be highlighted on. And like I said in my other video, whenever there's a do that, but there's really it's really a luxury to do that. And if everybody at the table wants to see it, we will zoom in and have a character and NPC dialogue or character to character dialogue if it's worth stopping for. Sure. So a little bit of role play is in that, 10%. But the other one is you got a job to do and you do it. If you know the rules in the books, if you know how to leverage your stuff, min-max away, buddy. Be more effective. Do what you got to do. All right, it's one way of play. The second way of play, Powered by the Apocalypse, which is in a game that I played last night. Or maybe you have like the Fudge system, or you've got Fate is actually spun off from the Fudge system. But games that are minimal mechanics to a certain degree to allow for a lot more expression in play. And even that to different points is curtailed by hand-holding is what I see it as. But then again, they got to write these games to where they inform and guide and give suggestions as far as how you can play a character. Nobody goes through that tabula rasa, blank slate, blank tablet at the start and feels confident in doing so. So games give you this, this thick book of possibilities that you can do, or what characters you can portray. And portray them in a way where you get to the focus and emphasis of the gameplay is the character development. Okay. Now, this game I played last night is the Nickelodeon Avatar RPG. It's built on the Powered by Apocalypse system. And everything in it, the attributes, there's 4 of them. It's geared towards social interaction at the table with NPCs and within the party. So the whole concept of maybe not leaving the tavern if you just want to play a game where you sit there and interact in that way with inter-party drama. Well, this highlights it and emphasizes it. So I'll tell you about my experiences last night. Was sitting playing it. Now we're learning the game. We sat down and Jorian was able to give us we did sit down and do a session 0 and had decided where everyone starts in the kingdom, agreed, kind of built the situation that you're there, your character's backgrounds, sort of like an origin story episode, right? And we get there. And Jorian embellished us with a little bit of a kickoff impromptu play session. It was about an hour long. It got us up to a certain point, and then we closed it off for the night. But it was interesting to see because everybody at the table, you can see how certain among us, even the GM, had, from my vantage point, different reactions as we were trying the system out. To me, I was eager to show certain aspects of the system, so I took opportunity to try them out, kick the tires, as it were. There was, you have these 4 basic attributes, which are basically empathy and passion and like focus, like with intensity. There's like 4 of them, right? And they're basic. It's just what you draw on, and you get two +1s. You can only get it as high as a +4 or as low as -3 in any situation. But you start out with +1s on 2 of your attributes, a 0 and a -1. And they're already prescribed. The character archetype that you're picking from, that you're selecting from. You define that character in your own way, but it gives you a structure to build upon. And there's 7 move sets, which could be basically, they're written in phrases, but it comes down to whether you're wanting to trick somebody or whether you want to have empathy and soothe somebody down or whatever. So there's like 7 different basic maneuvers. And when you're playing, one can be one or the other whenever you want to do something. Of course, like in any, well, I say any, but role-playing games in general, if something isn't contested and it's automatic, you do it. But if there's a pressure situation or a situation that you may have to roll to see how and if you are effective. You do that. You get your 7 basic moves. They can be called upon, but they're more of a social dynamic that you're interacting with. Maybe you're trying to assess the situation or gather information, being one, right? So you roll that. It could be based off your focus, and then it's a +1 to your roll. You roll 2d6. 7, 8, 9 is a weak success. Weak hit. 10, 11, 12 is a strong success. So there's a gradient above that level. 6 and below is a failure, but there's always like complications that can be in any situation can be given, because it's complications that move the story or the narrative forward in interesting ways. So it lays those tracks down in front of you, right? I mean, even if you succeed. So it's really that simple if you want to affect things. But the interesting thing is there's aspects of for each character build, there's 5 more specific moves for your character type that you choose 2 of the 5. So if you've got somebody who, like one of them's called the hammer, and they approach situations where, there's 2 principles that they look that guide. On one hand, it's the yin and yang aspect of it. On one hand, they think that you have to force your way through life and to get things done and whatever, but they don't want to break anything that's worth saving. You can't just be reckless in that. So there can be some interior conflict whenever you cross a line or you don't. So they're always, that's the point of contention inside of them. It focuses on the character itself and wrestling with these demons, so to speak. That being said, whenever you're in dialogue as a character with an NPC, you can still have an effect on them and shift and appeal to one principle or the other of them, since that's what drives them either way. There was a couple of situations last night where my son was in hiding, disguised, because he had witnessed this scorching of this town, right? And so he broke away and run, but he's in hiding, and he's intermixed with the Earth Kingdom, which I'm one of the members of. So he's playing from his character's perspective, but he has anxiety. And we come across this town at the start of it where he goes in and he's trying to impress upon us that from what he had seen before in his other town, that he doesn't say it verbally, but we know none of us are metagaming in this. But he's like, we need to do something because they can't survive. And of course, my character tries to change his view of things or calm him down about things, which I could have approached it with using my empathy to calm him down. All right, that's a basic move. But I'm trying to appeal to his principle. And you appeal to his principle like which one of them was survival. What may happen, it does happen, but he has to realize that he survived, and so will, my people. You got that thing that keeps you afloat in life, that we have to rekindle them, and instead of throwing ourselves to despair. Well, actually, it's just fatigue. You get 5 stats of fatigue, which they're not only given it once, like one check mark, but it depends on what you're doing, whether you get 2 or 3 max or whatever. So, but at least I take a fatigue if I fail, but I didn't. And so he gets an opportunity to understand. He wants to be stubborn about it and then do what he has to do. Now, there's 5 levels of fatigue, and then there's also conditions. You will naturally go from fatigue down to condition, but the conditions are specializations of themselves that aligns with the internal struggle that could be specific to something that is going on. So you could mark a condition, or the fatigue tracker. So there's 5 conditions too. If you get where all 10 of them are marked, then your character's out of commission, so to speak. Can't handle the show or whatever. With the GM and the player, that it would be appropriate to happen. But until then, it's just like an overwhelming situation that overtakes them. And you can also relieve conditions by, if you're fearful, running away and getting away from something. So your actions in game can alleviate something. When we're playing this game, it is centered around interactions and dialogue in heavy amounts of dialogue between characters, not only characters with NPCs and situations that may arise, but the player characters at the table aid one another and have conflictions in personal issues that they try to get out there. But everybody in that show is trying to help each other unpack that baggage, and it's enjoyed. But when we sat down to play, it seemed to me, some people I don't think like that contested aspect of characters being opposed whenever you're trying to get something done on the outside. If there's outside pressures, like we came into contact with the Fire Nation soldiers that were in this town, they were classing some people, but there was pressures that make the characters act in certain ways externally, but then having to deal with the problems and what they should do or what they shouldn't do as they're talking about things echoed some of the green line to a certain point to where it needs to go. Now, this is not saying that the GM, like in Dark Age of Man or anything, you don't let that go, because life around you tracks and keeps going, keeps ticking, so something can't interrupt what is going on. Totally plausible, feasible, interesting. Whenever, like I said, went on the outskirts of, we had exited this tunnel that we had bored through the mountain as the Earth Kingdom, Earth Benders, and opened up and into this little area. And then he felt a need to go rescue these people without fully like us sitting down and talking about things. I saw it, and then he was prompted to go. I tried to appeal to his nature to stop him. I rolled a failure, and then I narrated that my hand reaches shows, and it happens in life. You can't control everybody you want to do, but that dynamic of rolling to see if you can appeal to the character, make them second guess or rethink their actions is interesting. And he went and did what he had to do. I had to play from that point of view onward, that I didn't cause me to have a dialogue with the other players about what we needed to do, whether we needed to tunnel to the city and then bring out more refugees, whether he was safe with it, So it was situations that developed within inside the party that there was loss of contact and is a positive things, but to others, whenever you're off kilter, when it puts the party off kilter and you don't know, there's probably a level of anxiety that occurs that you feel out of control. I don't think people necessarily like that feeling. They like to feel like all their piecesing and there's unpredictability. And that's just a figurative speech, is like whenever things are, you're unsure about the potential for one thing or the other happening. It raises the stakes as far as the unpredictability of things. And therefore you got a little bit more fatigued about the interior dialogue and the party doing that, as opposed to moving along with how the party would address the world at large, not with each other, the situations and our personal interplay and dialogue. How you want the game to be expedited are the parties, or whether you think that something should be left in a tavern or out in the open, in play as it goes on. That's just a bias and a preference. As the guys say, there is can be enjoyed, and it is, and it's in practice to me a different way of play and enjoyment, as opposed to the traditional, which I like both in their own way and for a different experience. But playing Dark Age of Man, we've had situations that develop, and none of it was structured in a way that hand-led and spoon-fed you. It naturally occurred just with character concepts and us embodying these characters and how conflicts and how handling different situations would happen. Now, like I said, it's quite appropriate for the GM to insert something that is happening right away that you got to contend with, because life keeps moving on, no matter how much you want to plan about things. So with contending with the outside, there has to be do the best with what you have, and the time management has to be there with what you have. And if you feel that you've got prep done and something hits the fan, you have to, like as a player, out in your best laid defenses put up, or plan of attack. There is some difference in the play styles of it. I've seen in game development in recent years, a lot of people do not like. Me and the boys yesterday played Axis and Allies, as well as last week we played it. It's hard to get people to want to play a competitive game. There's a level where you don't know how to handle that directly, or don't thrive on it. There's a lot of games like Pandemic, where it's cooperative games, where people work together. So that seems to be a trend in gaming, to where it appeals more to the people that don't necessarily like that. But I think if even in a role-playing game, if you add mechanisms like calling out somebody's principle to appeal to them to see if they will double check themselves, may seem a little bit awkward to people. And then secondarily, the whole down for some people, it is not enjoyed. It's really by taste of what you want to experience in a role-playing game. And this goes to any medium. In video games or in movies, there could be something. Movie would be so down action type thing, like maybe Oppenheimer. Some people, it's a snooze fest as opposed to something that if somebody's interested in what occurred during that time period and find it interesting. There is, I'd read those Michael Crichton novels back in the day, and I really loved the science aspect, but his novels, at least the first part, were, if you didn't like that, I would feel like it would be a lodge for most people to get through it until the story, the rubber hit the ground as participants and lose them. Just something interesting that I thought would that would be something to point out about games. It's role-playing games in any game, but aware of what you do like and what you're getting into whenever you engage in one of these games, of what they do. Anyway, I'll let you go for right now, and we'll hit you on the flip side. All right, bye-bye.